Hello everybody, this is Will Robson here. You can check out my work at facebook.com/RobsonInc. So I realised that I could actually show my face while doing these videos. Let me know if you want me to hide my ugly face or if you want me to show my face, because I'm fine with not doing that. But I figured I would for this video because I want to talk to you, the people. I want to talk about a little thing called comic book art style. I hear a lot of people asking, and it was certainly a question I asked myself, was how do you make or come up with your own comic book style? How do you sort of finally get comfortable with drawing in the way you like to draw, enough that everything seems consistent and you're just drawing the way you want to draw? And by that I mean is a lot of the ways I used to draw looked like a lot of the ways a lot of people draw when they're first starting out, which is everything looks very sort of um, trying to be realistic but not very well, or it's just a complete imitation of someone else's style. So what I'm going to go over after that long boring intro is how I came up with my comic book style, and it's all about your influences. You have to look at your comic book influences and find what inspires you the most, and what can you find in your inspirations that you actually don't like. So let's get to what I want to do here. I don't need that up. So, excuse me. I have a lot of stuff on my computer, which I obviously purchased full price for. But I sorted a lot of things into folders. Now, actually, what I'm going to do is I'll show you what I used to do with how I learnt how to draw, essentially. And I'm still obviously learning how to draw, but this is something that I did, which you could probably think might be a bit crazy, but it certainly worked for me. I think I made a folder called Poses and References. I think it's under old. And I sort of I went through all these digital comics I have, which I have all here. I have a full series of things as well. Like here, I have every Fantastic Four, and because I mean, if you want to learn how to draw comics, you got to look at the really old stuff. So what I did was I started breaking things into sections. I mean, there's only one in there, which is a Todd McFarlane mouth. But let me see where I was going. Okay, so there's a clothing folder. And this is like little things. I used to make little folders of like trench coat, and I would go through all these digital comics and take sort of screen captures of them, and then I would incorporate that into my work. I used to work where, in order for me to draw anything, see look, see, jumping, overhead, running, sitting, standing. In order for me to draw anything, when I was first starting out drawing comics professionally, I didn't know what I was doing. This was about 2 years ago. So I'd build these massive reference libraries, and I'd sort of, on the fly, steal this stuff. I'd just straight up look at it and go, right, there's a guy in a suit, I'm going to take that. There's some Greg Capullo there. Oh yeah. So that's how I used to do it, and I gotta admit, I do recommend doing this for, even if you're not drawing professionally. I mean, you can't do it forever, but it's a bunch of different things. I have a whole folder of real anatomy. I mean, this might look like I have a secret file hidden on my computer that's questionable, but I just built up a massive reference library. Let me get to the real thing. I would say male poses. Okay, look how crazy I went here. Action poses, alert, arms behind back, arms crossed, arms on hips, back, background people, bad guys, blocking, choking, cracking knuckles, all of this stuff. And I just went through all of my favorite artists. There's some Jim Lee there. And I just found all of these poses until I got comfortable with recognizing a lot of these poses, where it all became second nature to me. And I still go through this library if I'm just doing studies to pick up quick things. Especially help with things like there's overhead shots of, like, I just gathered a bunch of photos of people standing overhead. So this is what I did. I used this type of reference for a good. It's funny. I just bought that book. A good long time to figure out how to sort of get some basics down. But this will only get you so far, because eventually you can't. Sorry, I'm having a little drink. I'm not sponsored by Diet Coke in any way, but eventually you find you got to be able to draw from your mind, and drawing from your mind is one of the most amazing things in the world when you can learn how to do it. So let's start from the basics of learning how to do that. Now, the first thing you should obviously do is look at some art books, as in tutorial books to teach you how to do it. And not only that, but you should go on as many YouTube videos as you possibly can to figure out how to draw, because figuring out how to sort of draw and break things down into the most simplest shapes and forms in order to build them up into your own art is so satisfying. I mean, now when I draw, I don't look at any reference whatsoever. I just sit, and whatever I draw is the final image, and that is being an artist to me. I mean, yeah, photo reference is great, any reference is great when you're learning how to draw, but for me, you're putting it into your professional work. You got to be your own professional. So, the first book I would recommend, and this I didn't want to do like an anatomy thing, but this does all delve into style, is Michael Hampton's Figure Drawing, Design and Invention. This book here is it wasn't the first book I read. The first book I read was George Bridgman Anatomy and a lot of Andrew Loomis and stuff, but this is the book which was recommended to me by John Rector, and you guys can check out his work at jonathanrector.com. He's a super awesome guy. This book was recommended to me by him, and it essentially, let me start hitting the space bar here, it essentially just breaks down everything into the most simplest form so you can understand it better, so you can sort of find all of these shortcuts. He's talking about drawing wrapping lines around everything, so that you can figure out the basic form of everything. So this comes in. You see how these sort of shade lines wrap around the form. Everything, and make sure you actually read these books as well. Don't just look at the pretty pictures in the books, because actually reading them goes a really long way. So look, it breaks the spine down into a simple tube. Let me get really deep into the book. The forearms, and again, you can't just look at this book in one night, certainly not one night, or focus on one chapter every night. You should focus on one chapter every night, but you can't just give up or think that you know it. I know for me personally, I have 3 sketchbooks filled of just drawing from this book, because I just would get frustrated so much, especially with drawing the forearm, that I'd end up getting stupidly mad and chucking my sketchbook across the room because I wasn't smart enough to figure it out. And that's only a lack of seeing the basic forms of everything. If you can break everything down into its most simplest form, you can draw anything. But eventually I sort of figured out in this book, and I constantly go back to this book as well. I look at this book at least once a week of just refreshing my memory on stuff. Like, I'll be in the middle of work and I go, oh, I don't really remember how to draw the scapula. Let me get the old Michael Hampton's Figure Drawing, Design and Invention out. And it goes a really long way. So I highly recommend this book if you just want to learn the basics of how to draw. Now, this goes into style a bit, because the style of the way I draw certain things certainly emulates the way Michael Hampton draws things. It's the basics that I replicate, but the basics go a long way. So that book was hugely inspirational for me. Here's the Bridgman stuff. I mean, the Bridgman stuff taught me how to put balance into my figures, which is really important. And it's a great book, but it's very stylized, and it's very me too dumb to read sometimes, because there's a lot of big words used in drawing that, and it's not very clear. The Michael Hampton book is extremely like, this is how you draw this is how you do this. Jack Ham's quite good. Andrew Loomis, the best book he ever made was Drawing the Head and Hands, because you'll see so many artists, and these are books, Jack Ham and Andrew Loomis, these are books that a lot of classic comic book artists use, like Jump Shimmer. So this is how they learned how to draw. So you got to look at the stuff how they learn how to draw, so you can draw. But you see here, he breaks the heads down into a simple sort of circle, and then he cuts the sides off of them and puts the planes. This is if you watch on YouTube, Stan Prokopenko, he does a very good video tutorial on how to do this. And this, to me, I actually went over this recently this year as a reminder. This is why I have a Ghost Rider background, because I was drawing this, and it was just a great refresher, because it's all about finding shortcuts in drawing. I remember I was talking to some guy recently, and he said, I don't like to put all the forms down in my drawings because I'm trying to save time. I feel like if I go straight into the drawing, then it's done. Well, that's dumb, because you need the underlying drawing. I'm not saying that you're dumb. I can't remember. Don't worry about that. But I'm saying I thought the same thing for the longest time too. But if you can, drawing these simple shapes takes seconds. If you can watch my videos on me drawing, well, it doesn't take seconds, but if you watch my other videos, you'll see me always break down everything in the most simplest form, because everything else after that is just little detail. If I know exactly where all those little forms are and where to place everything, boom, I'm ready to go into the next stage and finish the job up. So this book is essential for learning how to draw heads. And one of my favourite artists, Capullo, he definitely looked at this book, because when you see his roughs, you can see that he breaks the heads down in the same way Andrew Loomis does. So that goes a long way. I didn't want to get into anatomy books. I also highly recommend, I don't know what it is, I think it's art tutorials, Jack Ham, drawing scenery. This is actually a book that's not really talked about that much, but I can guarantee you that this is how comic book artists learn how to draw scenery. Because the way he draws smoke and breaks things down, trees essentially, brush strokes and find different textures to things, is stuff that I see in a lot of old comics. And this stuff is essential. If you want to find a style, you can't just draw big flashy superheroes punching each other. Yeah, that's the fun part of the job. But once you learn how to do all these other things, it becomes the fun part as well. So that's another great book. I was going to do a whole separate thing. Anyway, let's just close that up. So here I have a small list that's already been on my computer for ages of artists that really inspire me. The first one I'm going to do is Todd McFarlane, because Todd McFarlane is the reason I wanted to start drawing comics. It was the first time I ever saw comic book art, and it was the most appealing to me. So obviously let's dive into some amazing Spider-Man. I don't know what's going on with that eye there. That has always really weirded me out. This guy, I used to try and draw like him. This is not a very good quality one. Oh, yes, this is one of my favorites. I wanted all my old artwork. I used to draw to a T, rip off Todd McFarlane. Where if I was going to draw something, I have to find a reference. I have a huge all of this stuff on my computer I have basically in book form, because if it's really appealing to me, I'll obviously buy it and have it on hand. But what appeals to me about Todd McFarlane the most is his panel designs and his storytelling, sort of his storytelling, but mostly his panel designs, his rendering. I mean, look at the way this guy and let's find a really good example. And his figure poses. And everything like that. I mean, and just the detail. It's the detail I just love, and it just he makes looking at a comic book page interesting. Let's try and find a boring scene here. Look, this is a scene of J. Jonah Jameson telling Peter Parker off, but it's a cool looking page with close-ups and different panel layouts, and that's what I find really appealing. Because for me, I want to find the most dynamic and impactful. I don't know if impactful is a word, but the most impact I can get out of an image. And I absolutely love his rendering. Now, what I don't like about Todd McFarlane is the way he draws faces. I think he puts the eyes too close together sometimes. And sometimes, I mean, it got really expressive in the Spawn days, but some of it can look a bit dopey. And his hands, and especially his anatomy, is really wonky. But you can easily just chuck that all out the window and just focus on the amazing... It just looks beautiful. I mean, that's a classic image of Spidey there. And just all the little tick rendering lines and stuff like that. I mean, especially, like, I remember studying this image exactly of these trousers, just chucking all those render lines in. Now, you need to understand why those lines are in there and how they work, because you can't just chuck a million lines in. There's a really great book on how to draw clothes. I can't remember the name of it right now, but this is not what this is about. This is about finding comic book style. So for the longest time, this is exactly how I used to draw, just like Todd McFarlane. But there was also one other guy I used to draw exactly like, and I actually don't have any of his stuff on my computer, I don't think, because I sort of... Oh, I do, actually. Everyone knows this dude. I actually have some of his new stuff. I didn't even know. What do I want to show here? I don't have any of his X-Men. That's funny. Let's go to some Hush. This is the world-famous owner of DC Comics, Jim Lee. Now, again, impact. That's what I want the most. That shot of Batman right here, that's impactful. It's in your face. That's what I always say. It's like, I like art that's in your face. And just, it's just, there's a foot right in your face, and it's just, you look at it, and that's what I think is appealing about comic books. That's why I don't like realistic styles. I like cartoony styles, because I just like artwork that's in your face. That's the only way I can describe it. Anyway, I think a lot of people went through a phase, or a lot of people are stuck in that phase of, wow, Jim Lee is the greatest comic book artist in the world. That's what I used to say all the time. I want to draw just like Jim Lee. But over time, I've grown out of Jim Lee. I love Jim Lee's anatomy. The way he draws the big popping out rib cage right there, I've incorporated in my work, which a lot of that comes from John Byrne as well. the way he draws sort of the Batman cowl, I've incorporated a lot of my work. A lot of his rendering I've incorporated into my work. Um, that's about it, though. I really don't like the way he draws people's faces. I think he's not very good at showing different emotions. I mean, his Batman looks so cool, but he's not great at emotions. He's great at drawing hands, and figure drawing essentially is what he's the best at. He's a fantastic at drawing figure drawing, and he said that he learned all of it from George Bridgman. I always like to go through a lot of his work to look for interesting poses that I can try and incorporate into my work. And this is not stealing. I don't. I'll never look at a picture of like this of Catwoman and then draw something like that in my book. Never. I use this when I'm studying, and studying is when I have my sketchbook out and I'm just sort of chucking ideas down. Because I won't remember that pose exactly, but there's something like that in the back of my mind that I'll incorporate. But what I don't like about Jim Lee is I don't like the way he lays out his panels. I don't like his storytelling. I think this is coming from the 90s era of every page must be a big splash pin-up, and it takes sort of the wow and the effect out of drawing splash pages. I do like his thugs. I love the way he draws hands. There's these really sort of thick, gritty. Yeah, I'm gonna go back and study. I like the way that glove looks. And there's great impact there. But I've sort of fell out of love with him. I just don't like his faces. I think a lot of them look very much the same. And I don't. I'll go over to what he's doing now. Actually, this is gonna be a long video. I'm only on. I don't like what he's doing now in comics. It's a lot of sort of illustration techniques of this rendering, where he sort of stopped doing lots of spot blacks and adding a lot of rendering in. And I mean, an artist has to grow, but it's just not for me. Again, I'm not a big. I don't like the way he draws faces. I don't like Superman's face there. And these guys look exactly the same, and it's not great. Don't get me wrong, Jim Lee is an amazing artist, and he's a really cool guy, and he's super inspirational. But I can only take so much influence from his art now. But let's move on. I feel like I'm lasting ages. Am I done with Todd McFarlane? Let me just look at some of his Incredible Hulk real quick. This stuff is just awesome. This was him saying, to Marvel, do you mind if I do... I don't know if this was where he was doing his own inks, but he wanted to do his own inks because he didn't feel like any inkers were sort of incorporating his style. But the way he draws... I don't think that's a good example. Where's the one with Wolverine on the cover? Does anybody know what that is? Is this one? Nope. Sorry, I'm just getting over a cold. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked now. I used to, as I said, I used to look at his work a lot to try and incorporate my work. Now, as I was drawing Todd McFarlane a lot, I should get my old sketch pads out and show you what I'm talking about as well. But as I was drawing, how long have we been? 18 minutes. Okay, yeah, it's going to be a long video series. As I was drawing Todd McFarlane, I eventually discovered a guy called Greg Capullo. And I was just blown away by the absolute emotion he brought to his faces, where I could just tell what everybody on his page was thinking. And the first stuff I saw by his was Haunt. And I absolutely loved it. Let's get into this bad boy. I don't understand why, but I studied the hell out of the way he draws faces. To the point where I think I'm blatantly ripping it off, even though I incorporate a lot of John Romita Jr. in my faces as well. And again, I'm talking about this as I do this in my study. When I draw my comics, it's just me from my brain drawing. Oh my god, he's taken what I love about Todd McFarlane, which is panel layout and design, making it interesting, but he's also a fantastic storyteller, and I just love how everything is so cartoony about his work. Now, what I don't like is sort of these sharp, jaggedy lines that he incorporates. I think it looks really cool, but for me, I like the sort of fluidity of very round lines. And he does a lot of these really cool close-ups of people's lips and like putting out cigarettes. And see, like this is a classic Capullo. It's just a close-up of these sort of lips. I love it. So this is how I learned how to draw faces. I just sort of essentially studied it to the point where it just became natural to me. and everyone knows what's going on here with his Batman work. I mean, to me, this is the most inspirational. Oh my god, so good! Just look at it; it just blows me away. This to me is top-notch inspiration, and it's a lot more simple than his other stuff. A lot more simple than his Spawn stuff and his Haunt stuff because it's mainstream comics. But again, for instance, since he's drawing this character so much, even though he's changed a lot, again, I can already see an undershot of how to draw that face. Now I can see another undershot of how to draw that face. Now I can see a profile of how to draw that face. Now I can see above shot how to draw that face straight on. This was essential for me to sort of learn how to see how he was drawing. He does this tick line across the nose, which if you look at any of my work, I incorporate. It just brings out the form of noses, and just the way he draws mouths, noses, ears. Well, I don't think I really draw the way he draws ears, but love him to bits. Probably is my biggest inspiration, essentially when coming to drawing faces. Again, he's very great character artist. You know, all of his characters none of them look the same. He will change certain little things in everybody, so that they're distinct characters, and I think that's great. And everything's very cartoony. Look again, see, look close up of lips. Hang on, I can't get the zoom in, but close up of lips there. Very classic Capullo. I absolutely love it to bits. I'm not a fan of the way he shades things, though. That's one of the things I don't like. When he actually shades faces, I think it gets a bit odd. Like the colorist doesn't understand what he's trying to do. I'm not a fan of the way his shading, essentially, but I love the way he draws faces. I love his storytelling. He's the man. How long have we been? 20 minutes. Okay, I'm going to stop the video now. I'm going to break this into parts. So thank you very much for Thank you very much for watching. Part 2 will be up very soon. You can check out my work at facebook.com/oh my god, I can't speak /Robson Inc. Thanks very much for watching. See ya.